I am Mike Hendrix from SMB Golf, and today my guest is David Clark from Easy Tee Golf, and this is the Tech Caddy Podcast. David, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Mike. Really appreciate it.
Well, we're excited to have you on. I think you and I have known each other for maybe a year. I don't know how far back it goes, but you kind of caught my eye because you were building a tee sheet, and I've enjoyed kind of watching your progress, and I've enjoyed watching you respond to the market. And I thought you'd be a great person to have on the podcast because you actually now you've graduated to this seat of you can provide some counsel and some real world advice for other young entrepreneurs that are coming into golf.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, happy to be on. Happy to talk about that. Yeah.
You've had a nice successful career. Stops at Capital One and Amazon, and I think I noticed at Capital One you were involved with like UI, the user experience of the platform, so to speak. Well, talk about your, early days, how you got your first job, et cetera, but also be interested to kind of get some feedback from you on user experience, what your background is there, what some of your high level thoughts are there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So you're exactly right. Been at Capital One, Amazon, a few other companies. Worked as a product manager during that time. It was a little more than a decade in those roles. Where as a product manager, I wasn't doing a lot of coding on a day-to-day basis. I was really kind of the person in charge of figuring out what are the problems we need to solve as a business, what's the strategy we're going after, what are the features that we're going to build to solve those problems, and then doing the prioritization, the analytics, working with our design teams to design those and make sure that those were going to be intuitive and user-friendly, and then working with the development team to implement those features, test them, and get them out into the market, and then measure the success of those after release. So that's kind of what I've done throughout my career. I always leaned a little bit more into the technical side of things because I didn't know how to code. I didn't study computer science myself. I actually studied business in college and then went to business school and got an MBA. But while I was in business school, decided I wanted to learn how to code. I knew that technical skills would be important in a career in product management. And so I started taking online coding classes kind of on the side while I was doing my business school classes, and learned how to code, and then started kind of building some little side apps on the side from the jobs that I had where I was heavily involved in technical product and product strategy, mainly just as kind of hobby projects, fun little weekend projects I would do. And even Easy Tee started as one of those weekend hobby projects as well.
In your time at Capital One, perhaps Amazon, were you touching payments? Did you start to get exposed to the world of payments and understanding how really essential, not just essential, but how impactful payments can be to the business? Were you exposed to payments?
I was, yeah, mainly at Capital One. So Capital One, I was in the Capital One Auto Finance division, and I worked on several different teams during the time I was there. I kind of rotated through a couple different teams. But one of those teams was the Capital One mobile app, where I led all of the auto finance product strategy for the Capital One mobile app, iOS and Android. And that included payments. So we did a lot of work on, I was mainly ACH payments, but recurring payment programs, things like that. Getting involved in that with Capital One.
Payments has become such a big part of golf technology. It's actually how some golf technology companies underwrite the company, if you will, right? The SaaS is highly affordable. Sometimes the SaaS is comped for a year or something like that. But the jewel is to get a piece of the payments business. And I'm sure you've become very familiar with that because your tee sheet works with Square, integrates with Square. So I'm sure you're intimately involved with that today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So Square has been a great partner, worked with them for providing the payment processing technology as well as the POS for the golf course. Yeah, so very familiar with that and had to build those integrations, in a way that's compliant with regulations like PCI and everything. Yeah, so very familiar with all of that.
Great, great. So before we get too far down the road with EasyT and what you've built and now you're adding customers, et cetera, I think it's interesting for other entrepreneurs to hear what's the moment that you say it's no longer a side hustle. This is something I can do. I can make my rent payment. I can pay my car payment, whatever it is. You can fulfill your obligations. What talk about that moment where you say, now's the time to go all in on this?
Yeah, so I think there's a couple of key moments in the history of EasyT. The first one, it started out as a side project. I kind of built the initial version of EasyT, which was just a really simplistic pricing and scheduling engine, you want to call it that, where you could, set up prices that, varied on different days of the week and holidays and things like that. And then a scheduling engine that kind of allowed for flexibility and building out a schedule. That was really kind of a 1 week kind of evenings and weekends project that I built out. And after building that,
And why, David? Was it to solve a problem for a friend, or why do it?
so like I said earlier, I'd like to solve programming problems. For me, programming, writing code is kind of a hobby that I do. Some people have other hobbies like painting or woodworking or things like that. Coding is kind of my way that I solve puzzles. I do things that are interesting to me and kind of works my brain out and helps me relax when I'm not working in a day job. I'm a little weird like that, where kind of coding is my getaway and my fun thing that I do.
Well, you're not weird. We love people like that. But what was the moment where you thought it'll be golf that I'll do a little project around for this weekend? Why golf?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not really sure why I chose golf. I've been a golfer for a long time. I picked up golf when I was 10, 11 years old, played for a long time. I think it may have been that I was, booking a tee time at a local golf course and just thought that the tee time booking app looked kind of clunky and maybe I could build something that looked nicer than that. I'm really not sure what it was, but just kind of golf became the thing that I wanted to build something for. It really wasn't built with the intent of selling it and getting users on there. It was really kind of a hobby project. Kind of after I built it, that's when I realized I needed payment processing in there, and looked at Stripe, Braintree, some of the kind of payment processing technologies, but ultimately settled on Square, mainly because of the POS that comes along with it. And so I built that integration with Square, and then put up a marketing site. Just put together a really simple website, put it up on the internet. When I first built it, it didn't even have a name. It was just, the project was just called Tee Time Scheduler. And I put a name for it and put up the website. And within the first couple of weeks after putting up the website, I actually had 3 golf courses reach out wanting demos. There's actually 2 green grass golf courses and 1 disc golf course that wanted demos of it. And the 2 golf courses actually both ended up signing on and using the app and are still customers today. The disc golf course didn't. But that was kind of that early feel that this might actually be a business. There might actually be something here that I can continue to take and run with and work on long term.
And did
And so
those customers, David, I guess they were prospects and became customers, did they completely find you on their own simply because you had built your website in a way that was easy to find?
no. So the one thing I did do is there's Square has a sellers community. I went on there and just kind of made a post that if there's any golf courses looking for an app that works with Square, I just built this thing. It's brand new. Reach out to me, and they found it through that.
Got okay.
A solution that worked with Square
Yeah.
and found me that way.
Yeah, I mean, that's the power of marketplace, right?
Mhm.
Is and because that's really a marketplace of apps, if you will, or I don't know how you would explain it, but there's a lot of people in golf that just they hear the word marketplace and they don't like it. But there's other people in golf that say, well, hold on, marketplaces can, they can really serve a great purpose. In your case, you weren't dealing in a tee time marketplace, but that marketplace did introduce you to customers, and that's a win.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so it was a huge win. The first golf course, they came online about 2 weeks later. I remember it was a Saturday morning, and my daughter had a soccer game that morning at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I knew this golf course. It's Riverview Golf Course up in Manitoba, Canada. They were opening up and launching with EasyT that morning. And not only did my daughter have a soccer game, but I was coaching the soccer game. And so other than being there supporting them during their launch, I was coaching a bunch of 9-year-old girls in a competitive soccer match. But
Excellent.
I remember after the game, I got in the car, started to drive home. I had my wife drive me home so that I could check everything on my phone. I was looking at server logs. I was checking my email. I had an email from the owner of the golf course telling me that everything had worked great. Things were going well. He was getting great feedback from the pro shop. And it was kind of that moment where I realized that Easy Tee Golf was a real thing. I have real customers. I have a real business that's using this for a crucial business process, and that I need to make sure that I'm taking care of them, making sure that we're up 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that I'm not introducing bugs into it, that I'm taking it to the next level. It's no longer just a hobby project.
Yeah, for the coders, the CEOs, the founders, whatever you want to say, for that group of people that have a real servant's heart, the weight of the customer can be incredible, frankly.
Mhm.
Sometimes it catches entrepreneurs off guard. If they, a lot of people don't even know that they have a servant's heart until they have their first three customers.
Mhm.
Maybe they worked in a restaurant, maybe they worked at a bowling alley, maybe, and they believed in service, but some people become shocked when they actually feel the weight of the customer. And it sounds like you might have a little of that in you. Not that you're shocked, but that you do feel the weight of the customer.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I definitely felt that, having them, and then the next golf course came online a week or two later. It was definitely a big responsibility that I felt to make sure that everything was running smoothly for them, to make sure that I was taking their feedback and building it into the app. And by the end of the summer, I think we got to October, November, when both of them shut down for the winter. I remember feeling a big relief that I could log into Google Analytics and there wasn't, a few dozen people using my app at once, and that I could kind of breathe a little bit.
So back to the initial. So at what point do you decide, I now have enough customers? It looks like there's a real future here. I'm going to go all in. No more part-time job. I'm going all in on being really, now you're transitioning almost from being the founder of Easy Tee Golf. And now you're thinking about, like, I think I'm going to transition to being the CEO and head of sales. So talk about how you made that decision.
Yeah, so that was it was a couple year journey. So from the time I launched until I kind of went all in on Easy Tee and I quit my full-time job to focus on it, it was a couple of years between that. And during those couple of years, it was still was kind of a side project where I was, making sure it was running, but that was about it. I was, nights and weekends building out some feature requests and things, but I wasn't doing any focus on sales or marketing. Any growth that happened during those 2 years was purely organic, purely people searching for a solution like mine, finding it and signing up. And so it was about that point that I started to see a kind of a ramp up in growth where more and more customers were reaching out. And based on the trajectory that I looked at, I don't know if you're familiar with Paul Graham and any of his essays or his thoughts, but he has this concept where he talks about startups being either default dead or default alive. And every startup starts default dead, where if you just continue on the path you're on, you're eventually going to run out of money and your startup's going to die. But there's a point when a startup, based on the growth trajectory that it has and the revenue that it has, makes this switch where it becomes default alive. Where as long as that path continues, it's gonna stay alive. And as I was looking at that, I saw that I had kind of made that jump to default alive, where EasyT really had a viable future, and decided to go ahead and go all in. And it wasn't at that point, it wasn't earning enough to cover all of my living expenses. I'm fortunate that one, that I live in a low cost of living part of the country, in Missouri, um, and that I'd had kind of highly paid jobs in tech for more than a decade. And I'm pretty frugal myself. I don't spend a lot of money. And so I had some savings that I could live off of. And I knew that I'd be comfortable living off of my savings for several years if I needed to. Unfortunately, the last couple of years with the full-time focus, it has grown to the point where it is now a fully sustainable business that does pay for all living expenses. And I think that's something when, founders are thinking about this, that's probably the key factor is, how am I going to survive if I go all in on this?
Question is the question, right? Because if you can't survive, then this there's no point in this. You brought up money. Did you raise money, or are you fully bootstrapped?
Fully bootstrapped. Yeah, I didn't raise money. I'm not opposed to raising money, but at this point, I've had a few conversations with investors, but have chosen to stay bootstrapped. I understand the trade-offs that occur when you do raise money, and have decided not to pursue that.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of money out there right now for golf. I sit in this odd seat of watching a lot of these companies, and more private equity firms have found me. I don't solicit any private equity firms, but you can tell in the last 3 to 4 months there is tremendous interest right now from firms looking to make investments or maybe even full acquisitions.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I know I've read some of the reports that I've seen. I think some that you've shared and just others around some of the concepts that are getting some money. Yeah, it's really interesting, really exciting. I think for the industry to see
It
that.
is exciting. I agreed. So let's talk about ICP, your ideal customer profile. What is the ICP today for EZT Golf? And then possibly are you thinking about, but we're going to get to where the ICP is this. But let's talk about who's a great fit for EZT Golf today and the golf courses that you think about could become customers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I look at who's signing up for EZT Golf today, who are our customers? There's a few trends that I see. One is about 50% of our customers are 9-hole golf courses, which definitely over-indexed on 9-hole courses. I think overall 9-hole makes up about 25% of the overall market. So for 50% of our customers to be 9-hole courses, we're definitely over-indexed there. But I wouldn't say that EZT Golf is a 9-hole tee sheet or anything like that. We do have about half of our customers are 18-hole courses. The other thing is almost every course that signs up with us does have some sort of connection with Square. Either they're already using Square in their restaurant or in some part of their business, but then using whatever provider's POS for their tee times. And they're wanting to go all in on Square because they like that platform. Or in some cases, they're using something that they're not happy with. And maybe a board member uses Square for their completely unrelated business that they run, a t-shirt printing business or something that's completely unrelated to golf, but they're on the board and they say, hey, we should look at Square. And that causes them to then start searching for tee sheets that work with Square, and they find us that way. So those are kind of the two kind of profiles that stand out to me in terms of who uses EZT. But really, we work with all different sizes of courses, mainly public courses. We don't really work with any private courses today, but public golf courses, they tend to be a little bit smaller. A lot of them, it's about 60% of our courses had never done online bookings before they signed up with us.
I was going to ask you that question. How many of these courses are being introduced to an online reservation? And even really almost by default, that means and their first digital tee sheet as well.
Yeah. So for us right now, it's about 60% of our customers were coming, having never done it before.
Interesting to me because that means 40% of your customers, you took market share away from someone.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, we have had customers switch over from several of the big players in the industry, which in a lot of those cases, again, they were also switching their POS to Square or kind of converting their entire operation to Square, whereas they used to have maybe a small part of it using Square.
So we've mentioned Square a lot here early on. Will EZT Golf go and find other people like Square to work with? And just for example, you could work with Clover, potentially you could work with Toast, potentially you could work with Spot On. Talk about if you'll graduate to a second provider like a Square.
Yeah. So right now, we're fully focused on Square and that partnership we have there. I do believe personally that Square is the best POS out there. There's a reason why it's used in so many restaurants, so many retail locations around the world. I would say I'm not opposed to integrating with others. I really look to customers to kind of drive that part of my roadmap. If I had, a golf course reach out and say, hey, we really like EZT, we like the concept, but we're already using someone else in our, Toast or someone in our restaurant, we'd like you to integrate with that. That would drive, much more serious discussions there. That said, I actually have reached out to Toast about an integration about a year ago. At the time that I reached out, they told me they didn't support self-service integrations. I told them, just give me an API key and a link to your documentation and I'll go build everything on my own.
Yeah.
And they told me they couldn't do that, but they only accepted a very small number of partners right now. And so nothing really materialized from that. But definitely not something I'm opposed to. The way EZT is built, it's very modular. I built the application first, then added Square on later, so it'd be very easy to kind of swap Square out with somebody else.
Great, that's smart. Yeah, I mean, listen. First of all, I sympathize with you on the self-serve API because one of my sons has tried to work with Toast, and so I've heard about all of those struggles. I will also say, just specific to Toast, I'm actually kind of waiting around for another tee sheet to connect to them. Sagacity connects to Toast. And we track growth numbers, and it's impressive the number of golf courses that are moving to a Sagacity Toast combination. We've seen it in Ohio, we've seen it in Texas, we've seen it in Arizona. And I understand that maybe that's not your ICP today, right? Admittedly, right? That might not be your ICP today, but I would think that ultimately you'd want to get there. And just from to me, nothing against anybody here. I just tend to be a strategist. I'm thinking about, well, when's the next T sheet going to go work with Spot On? Like, who are the big competitors of Toast? And will another T sheet come and connect to one of those big competitors of Toast?
Yeah, yeah, definitely makes sense. I think that the more flexibility we can give to our customers, the better. So anywhere I can give them more options, I'm open to doing that.
Do you have golf courses that are using EasyT Golf that do not use Square?
No, no, everyone uses Square.
100%. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. Okay. So I am really curious because this is called a newer T sheet. What's the date of your first customer? Like how many years you've been actually fulfilling customers?
2021.
Okay. So we're 4 years into this. Let's talk about features and how David Clark decides what features to build, because we know there's a tremendous amount of features in a T sheet. We have a compare page on one of our websites where you can put T sheets side by side. There's a whole bunch of lines in there. How do you decide what you're going to build and then roll that out to your customer base?
So on EasyT, my job as a product manager, product roadmaps was, main thing I did in my job. And with EasyT, I don't run the roadmap exactly the same as I did in, the companies that I worked for, where I had, a quarterly roadmap, a year or 3-year roadmap. I kind of have a Trello board with a list of features. There's really 3 buckets of features. There's kind of the ideas that I've come up with usually through conversations with operators where they're mentioning problems they're having, and I'm figuring out, what feature could I build to solve this problem. There's direct feature requests from customers where customers are, reaching out saying, hey, we really wish the T sheet could do this or that. And there's technical things that I want to do just to improve the platform performance, stability, security, things like that. And so I have that list. Really, what I decide to prioritize is really driven by customers. If I'm getting multiple requests for the same kind of thing and I have a feature that's going to solve that problem, that's going to bubble up to the top really quickly. Otherwise, then I kind of go back to my list and I start figuring out what are the things that I think are going to put us in a great position to drive customer satisfaction, to make our T sheet more enticing to potential customers, features that maybe are missing that people would be looking for in order to adopt something like it. Or like I said, just platform stability things. I'm always trying to make the platform faster, more stable, more secure, and just improve the platform overall.
So you recently rolled out Waitlist. So that's a new feature you built, and you don't have some of the more classic features that a T sheet would have. I think you and I traded some messages about squeeze times.
Yep.
And that's okay. It's interesting to me that a modern approach is, well, the hot thing today in golf is Waitlist, so I'm going to go build Waitlist before I build squeeze. Walk me through that. Like, did you think about like maybe I should build Waitlist and then 3 customers said, yeah, build that? Or, how do you parse it out?
Yeah, so that's part of it. Yeah, Waitlist was one that was requested several times when I was doing demos with golf courses. I reached out to a few of my existing courses and asked, kind of probed for their interest in a waitlist. And it was always very positive, the response I would get on that. And so I decided to prioritize that ahead of some other things. Like I said, generally, I really look for customers to provide the feedback on what they feel they need or what problems they're having so that I can figure out solutions to those. Uh, yeah, it's specific to squeeze times. I'd actually never even heard of it before. It's just not something that's ever come up in any conversation I've had with any customer. Being someone who is not a golf industry insider, someone who's never worked at a golf course, it's just not something I was familiar with, and it's not come up, and so it's not been on my roadmap.
Yeah. It won't come up until it's urgent somewhere or something, right? And so I understand. Well, let's talk about your wait list, because we have seen a couple of T sheets, now build in the wait list functionality, if you will. Golf Now has something called Tee Time Alerts, and I know that's available in their classic booking engine. We know 10-4 built waitlist. Now EasyT Golf has waitlist. Talk a little bit about how your waitlist works and maybe what makes it different.
Yeah, so this is the phase 1 of our waitlist. I do try to roll things out in phases. The phase 1 is very simple. Every golf course now on their booking page There's a link at the very bottom that says, if you don't see the tee time you're looking for, join the wait list. You click that, you're going to select a date. You're going to put in a time range for when you're looking for a tee time, the number of golfers in your group, as well as, how much notice time you need in order for the notification to be valuable for you. So, if you live 30 minutes away from a golf course, it doesn't do us any good to notify you 10 minutes before the tee time that it became available. So you can put in how many minutes notice you need so that you can actually go book that and be able to go do that tee time. And once you create that, just any openings that happen, you're going to get, it's email today only. You're going to get an email notification telling you about that with a direct booking link to go book that tee time. So that's the phase one of it. It's been live for 1 week now. We launched exactly a week ago, and I'm already seeing usage of it, seeing customers adding themselves to wait lists, seeing
Wow.
book tee times that became available through the wait list. So it's already working and in place.
Did you build your UI such that there's a pop-up that says, would you like to join? Like, how does the golfer become aware that waitlist is even a thing? And part of the reason I ask that is, the king of waitlist is Notify. They do an amazing job of putting that widget in, typically in the bottom left corner. Very obvious that you can join the waitlist there. The opposite of that would be Golf Now, where they almost hide it in the top left corner of the booking engine, and you really got to work to even know it's there. So I'm thinking EasyT is probably somewhere between those two ends. How do you do it? How do you introduce the concept to the golfer?
So I wanted it to be as unobtrusive as possible. I didn't want to take over the whole screen to announce it because, golfers are there to book a tee time, not to join a wait list. Ideally, that's what they're doing when they're on your tee sheet. And so I put it as a link. It's at the link. It's at the very bottom of the tee sheet. It's in a different color than the rest of the tee sheet to make it stand out a bit more. I did some testing. So my wife and my kids are my beta testers. And so whenever I build new features, they're always the first ones that I hand them a phone or an iPad. And I say, here, go figure out how to do this thing. And then I see if they can figure it out. And if they're able to figure it out, then that's a positive test that it's, the discoverability of the feature is good and the user experience is good. If they're not able to figure it out, then I go back to the drawing board and I work on it some more. And so went through a few iterations with my wife and my six-year-old son and 9-year-old son, and got it to a point where I was comfortable that it was going to be both non-obtrusive, but still discoverable.
What about the soccer player? Did she get to weigh in on it?
She did. Yeah, she did as well.
Okay. So that's great. And so you are seeing golfer adoption of that. What's the feedback from the operator?
So there's not been a lot of feedback. I had a couple, so I sent out an announcement to everybody announcing it. I had kind of sent out a teaser a few weeks ahead of time saying that it was coming. Did get a few responses that they were excited for it to come, that it was going to be really helpful. But there hasn't been a lot of feedback since launch.
Yeah.
I'm monitoring usage, and that's kind of how I'm measuring it right now.
Well, so let's talk about something similar. You also, just for people that don't know EasyT, and you're thinking, oh, this is just you've already knocked down your integration with Reserve with Google. You've already built a custom wait list. So just for the audience, EasyT is building features that are modern, forward-thinking, etc. So I just want to kind of say that out loud. And you're not a customer. I want everybody to know you're not a customer of ours. But let's talk about Reserve with Google, because that's another thing sometimes where I hear from people, wow, Mike, actually you talk about this more than my customers talk about it. I don't hear a lot about Reserve with Google, but why don't you share with us what's your customer feedback with Reserve with Google? What are you seeing in Google Analytics specific to Reserve with Google? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So Reserve with Google, I first heard about it from you, from your podcast. Integration with Google, working with the Google teams was great. They're, obviously very smart, very good processes in place to onboard at scale. And so I was able to build that integration out. The feedback from golf courses so far has been very good. I think when I show it in demos to prospects, they're excited about it. I think they're seeing it more and more when they're either booking tee times at other courses in their area or with other providers that they're looking at. So it seems like awareness of the feature has gotten there's a lot of awareness of that in the industry now with operators. And in terms of usage, I'm seeing really high usage rates. So right now, I think it's about 14% of all online tee times are going through Reserve with Google, where they're bypassing the course's website and going directly to our booking or their booking page in EasyT. So that's really high rate, much more than I expected when I launched it.
And so there, and there is a rub there, right? There are certainly many people in golf that don't love what you just said. Not that it's your fault that you said it, but there are operators that don't love the fact that the golfer was able to book a tee time without coming to their website. They feel like they've given up some marketing juice of introducing that golfer to their Friday night couple league, or letting that golfer know that, hey, we also have a 10-round pass that you can buy. And so there are some that believe they're giving up some marketing juice, like I said. There are others that understand the fastest way to a tee time conversion is something that's really interesting to me. I'm doing work for golf courses specific to the Google profile. I actually am seeing that button has a higher conversion rate than any other route to the booking engine. That's hard to set aside. If it is the highest conversion rate, that really does say a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I think, when I think about a golf course website and what is the job of the website, you want golfers getting to the booking page and booking. So yeah, they're missing out on some marketing opportunities, but I think there are other opportunities to let golfers know about those other programs that you have. They're going to be coming to your golf course, they're going to be checking in at the pro shop. You're now going to have their email address on file where you can do marketing in other ways to them
Yeah.
to let them know about those things.
Just 2 cents on the website, because people that follow me know I'm talking more and more about websites. I actually think the website is more than just getting them to the tee time page. Another really important part of the website for the golf course operator is that the website can have a lot of schema in it, structured data that frankly Google, Bing, ChatGPT, etc. can read and get that information to golfers, albeit they don't come to the website. But now the golfer actually is engaged with the golf course brand because the website was properly built, because the website was properly optimized. And I hope that more and more golf course owners really come to understand your website is the megaphone of your business. Even if people don't come to it, there is information being pulled from that website every single day that's actually very important to your business.
Oh yeah, that's definitely absolutely true, especially when you start thinking about, AI models and how they're learning the data they learn to give answers to people, which is now built right into Google search results. Having that data there that is going to teach the AI model the information you want it to know, you want it to share to your golfers. Having it there in the right format is crucial. Yeah, absolutely.
Let's talk, not to get too nerdy with our audience right now. So listen, one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in my career in golf, okay, and nobody knows that I'm about to say this, the T-Snap booking engine does incredibly well in Google search results. I've never seen a booking engine index as well as the T-Snap Tee Time booking engine does. And I actually don't know why it does do so well. But the more and more I've been looking at other booking engines, I have been asking myself, did they create a way to put structured data in here? Are there things in this particular booking engine that Joe Schmo built that really do resonate with search crawlers, bots, etc.? Talk a little bit about your engine. Is it optimized? Does it, can you put a Google Analytics code in it so it's got its own analytics? Talk about your booking engine.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have an integration with Google Analytics. So any golf course that wants to can put their Google Analytics code into it, which will log all activity that happens on their tee sheet to their Google Analytics account.
And let me just interrupt you. Does it become a second line in their Google Analytics account? So like they've got a line for their domain, and then the booking engine is a secondary line that they can go look at just independent of the larger domain?
So it depends on how they set it up. So they can
Okay.
a separate property if they want to, or they could put it under the same property as their main website.
Got it. Okay. So go on.
Yeah, and so any golf course can attach their Google Analytics to it. We have everything tagged so that it's going to monitor, the buying process throughout, where you land on the tee sheet, you get to the booking page, and then finally the after booking page. It's going to log that flow, that kind of funnel of customers, and show you conversion rates and dropout rates and all that. In terms of Google search, EasyT, yeah, we're tagged with all the right information. In fact, I was looking at a couple of our golf courses just last week and actually saw that their booking page in EasyT was ranking above their main website in Google search results, which
Yeah.
was interesting to me.
Yeah. I mean, I understand that on some level that could be frustrating to an operator or whatnot. But the truth of the matter is, you're not competing with your customer. You're not trying to like get people to come to some big easy tea golf cog and book a tea time. It's just that frankly, you built your booking engine in a way that's easier for it to index in search results. And additionally, that particular golf course website could probably use a little enhancement, right? It maybe that particular golf course website isn't optimized so well, and they would do well to use a service to help them.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I see websites that are kind of all over the board with golf courses. There's some that were obviously built a long time ago and probably no one's looked at in 15, 20 years. And I see some that are really well done. But yeah, they're definitely all over the board with websites.
The challenge is it's kind of like you're past step one or two when it comes to, hey, I've optimized this engine so that it's really works really well with Google Analytics. The next step is, now how do you create the report and the communication line with the client so they actually can see what's happening with their business? There's a big, huge difference between, and it's really easy to get this information and then actually getting them to consume the information.
Yeah, that's true. I think, I again, not super familiar with the industry, but I imagine there's not a lot of people at golf courses who are used to digging into data at that level, especially web analytics data, conversion rates, things like that. And so I see myself as one of the things that I'm trying to tackle is how do I better enable my customer success by kind of taking that more of a consultative role with them and helping them make sense of the data and
Yeah.
finding opportunities for where they can optimize their
Yeah.
business.
And as you get bigger, you may ultimately want to explore, group webinars where it only takes an hour of David's time and 20 different customers can come in and you all can talk about the same thing. I am so attached to this idea of it's the outbound reporting that essentially fights churn. It's the outbound reporting that keeps it sticky with the customer. And honestly, the Google Business Profile reporting, so once a month you get your performance email. I mean, that's as good as there is, right? It just opens right up in the email. You scroll right through it. You can see all your stuff. You can click over to more details. More and more golf companies should emulate how the Google Business Profile report comes out on a monthly basis. Go chase that. Go copy that, because I think they do a really good job.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's an area where we're probably not as strong. We don't have an email report. We do have a reporting section in EasyT where you can go get your data and see your insights. I know last time I looked at that, it's not a page that gets much usage. So it doesn't seem like our golf course, our customers are really looking at that too much. And so again, another problem that I want to kind of help them figure out, how do they make sense of their data?
Yeah, yeah. So you talked about when we started talking here about Reserve with Google, we got there because you said you were in stage one of waitlist.
Mm.
So there's going to be a stage two of waitlist. Perhaps it helps to complete the transaction, I would guess. What do you think stage two of waitlist is?
There's a few things that I'm looking at for stage two. Right now, I'm really just kind of monitoring how things go, looking for feedback, looking for either golf courses or even the golfers to provide some feedback on what they want to see. Some of the things that I'm looking at potentially adding in a phase two would be text message alerts. If there's demand from golfers, they want to get those alerts on their phone because just don't check your email as often as you do your text messages. I think auto booking is definitely something that I'm looking at. How do we enable, if a customer is really motivated and really wants this tee time, that they can go ahead and enter their payment information. Say, if something becomes available, just book it for me. Don't even send me a notification that you booked it, not that it's available. And so there's a few things I'm looking at, nothing that's been decided yet for the phase two.
And then let's talk phase two for Reserve with Google, because there's certainly, I mean, for some people know this, there's a really big phase two with Reserve with Google where all of the tee time chips is what I've called. I don't know why I call them that, but that's the word I've been using. And I'll put up a couple screenshots right now on the podcast so people can see what we're talking about. But there is a version 2 or 2.0 of Reserve with Google specific to individual tee times. Is that on your radar? Do you think you'll do it? Maybe you won't do it.
It's on the radar. It's not anything that's high priority right now, but definitely something that I've looked at a little bit, not too deeply though.
And so as we do, look, you and I both live in flyover states. You're in Missouri. I'm in Ohio. Everybody dismisses us. We don't matter, right? We get it. as you do look to as the season winds down, that's why I'm saying that, because the season will start to wind down here. What are you thinking about for, maybe it's the PGA show, or just thinking about the 2026 season? I would imagine that artificial intelligence is on your mind, but maybe not. Why don't you talk about what you're thinking about, going forward?
Yeah, so there's a few things, kind of, yeah, over the winter months. So a lot of my golf courses are up in the north. We have a few that are year round, but a lot are going to be closing down. So usage is going to kind of trail off a bit here for a few months. I do have a few standalone simulators though that will come online, so I will see some increased usage there. A few things that I'm looking at to do over the next few months is, building out our simulator capabilities, make sure that we're serving those customers well. I have a backlog of feature requests that came kind of from the last winter season. Looking at, just how do we do really well during the sales season? The winter is when golf courses tend to change providers. And so how do I do really well at making sure that the golf courses are looking for a change? I'm able to put my best foot forward for those that are interested in seeing what we have. And if there is any feature requests that come out of that, those would definitely bubble up in the roadmap really quickly. Let me think. There was sorry, what was the other part of your question? Sorry.
What 2026 looks like. Will you attend the PGA show? Will you, do you try to start to elevate the brand and try to capture more attention, really?
That's right. Yeah. So I'm not sure about the PGA show. I'm undecided on that. I'm going to the Tea Time Summit here in about a month.
I'll
Uh,
see you there. I didn't know you were going. I'll see you there.
yeah, so I'll be at that. Still undecided about the PGA show. I think, trying to get more awareness of EZT golf is definitely my top priority right now. Just getting the name out there, letting people know that we exist, that we are a viable solution, hoping that they read some of the reviews that have been written about EZT golf, because the reviews have been very positive. And then you also mentioned AI. Dabbling with AI a little bit. I have a lot of thoughts on AI. I actually used to work on some AI models at some of the previous companies I worked with, in terms of gathering, cleaning, categorizing data to train AI models, and then actually doing the training and deployment of AI models into production systems. So I do have some experience in that field and have a lot of thoughts on AI. I don't see AI really taking over the booking engine and T-sheet market. When you think of computer programs, there's kind of traditional programs that are very much rules driven, where you write your lines of code and that's the only thing that program is going to do. Whereas an AI system, you feed in a bunch of data and it figures out the patterns in the data, and it figures out what it needs to do as an output given certain inputs. And a T-sheet is really a rules driven thing. It's not really something you want have, even if it's 99.9% correct. One 0.1% that's incorrect means one out of every 1,000 T times is going to be wrong. It's going to have some error in it. And so you really want the rules driven approach that's going to be 100% correct all the time. Not to mention the cost of running AI models would make it, difficult to be viable as an AI driven T sheet. That's not to say I don't think there's opportunities for it. I think there's definitely opportunities. Looking at things like dynamic pricing, I think AI models, that's a great use case for AI models in terms of optimizing prices in order to optimize profits and revenue at golf courses. We don't do dynamic pricing yet today, and that's mainly because we haven't had a use case, haven't had a customer or prospect that's really needed that. And so if that were to come along, it's something I would be looking at.
Talk a little bit about phone reservations via AI or using AI. Do you think that there's a market there?
I mean, there's phone systems, traditional IVR phone systems that have been able to handle, phone requests for years. And they're traditional computer programs in the definition that I gave, that they're rules driven. It's just a bunch of kind of if then statements. And I think that handles booking over the phone just fine. They can, traditional IVR phone systems can handle voice recognition. They can handle all that already. So I don't know why AI would be needed to do a voice system, but I could be wrong on that. I'd love to see, examples where they exist, but that's my thinking on it today.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting because there were entire, frankly, large companies built around golf course call centers. And we're going back 20 years now and that type of thing. Typically in golf, when you say, oh, well, we're going back 20 years or we're going back 30 years, what's inherent in that statement is when it was really busy in golf, right? We were in the tiger boom and it was super busy. there was real demand for call
Mhm.
centers. Well, right now we're at the height of golf once again. Rates, participation rates we've never seen before. People in the shop being stressed out. It does seem like call centers can be a solution. I just think that people don't want to have the costs that they once had with call centers. They're looking for, yeah, we need to be able to use a call center, but I don't want it to be financially burdensome to my business. I tend to think of AI there, but I think you make a really fair point that maybe just a modern IVR system is good enough.
Yeah, and I think, when it comes to phone booking systems, it's really just another interface. And I think, the market today is much different than it was 20 years ago with, smartphones and, just people are more computer savvy than maybe they were 20 years ago and more comfortable booking online. I know some golf courses do still get a high volume of customers calling in to make tee times, but I think that's going down over time and more people are comfortable just booking it online themselves. I saw a report recently that was comparing the golf industry with other industries and showed that there's people who book their flights online, they book their hotels online, but they still call to make a tee time. And how do we bridge that gap in the golf industry?
Yeah. Well, one of the reasons they call to make a tee time, again, this also wasn't permitted years and years ago. One of the reasons they call to make a tee time today is the golf course doesn't require a credit card over the phone.
Mhm.
They don't want to deal with PCI issues. Larry in the shop is too busy to take a credit card number, even if he was allowed to write it down, which he's really not. And so a lot of golfers have figured out, well, the way to book a tee time without a credit card is to call.
Mhm.
Because that golf course's booking engine requires a credit card, but I'm able to convince Larry in the golf shop to forego that. And so it's an interesting loophole a lot of golfers have figured out.
Yeah, that's true. And I definitely have seen that type of thing, other loopholes that golfers figure out to get around those things. I think that, it's on the golf course to decide how strict they want to be with their policies. And if they want to say, we're not doing phone tee times, you need to go online to do it because of, that's where we capture the credit card and that's where we secure the tee times with that. The same thing happens with cancellation policies where, maybe the golf course requires 24 hours notice to cancel. But if you call inside of that 24 hours, they'll go ahead and break policy and cancel it for you anyway. So they don't get yelled at on the phone or something.
Right.
But, I see so many parallels between the golf industry and the airline, the hotel industry, in terms of kind of the economics of how the industry works, and think the golf courses should be adopting more policies, kind of more similar to what airlines and hotels do in terms of reservations, cancellations, no shows, all of those things.
So, David, you mentioned you're going to go to the Tea Time Summit. What's your goal there? Why go? What do you want to accomplish there? I'd be interested to hear.
Yeah, there's a few things. One is, again, being kind of an outsider to the industry, getting to know people, getting to meet people in the industry, building a bit more of a network in the golf industry. When they reached out to tell me about the Tea Time Summit, I was excited to hear about, what they're going to be doing, what they're going to be, figuring out some policies and kind of guardrails or rules of engagement for operating in the golf industry. As a tee sheet provider, as a software provider for the industry, I definitely want to be involved in those conversations and have my voice heard so that we're thinking through everything thoroughly and not disadvantaging smaller companies or anything like that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
one thing that happens a lot, and this happens in the financial services industry, is there's a lot of regulations in place that make it very burdensome and very hard to start up a new company, a new credit card company or a new bank. It puts an advantage on the incumbents who have the budgets to be able to comply with all those regulations. And so want to make sure that we're not disadvantaging startups and disincentivizing entrance into the industry.
Yes, and I think that's well said. I am a big proponent of, you shouldn't have to write a check to be considered and that kind of thing. And so I'm always kind of rooting for the little guy. And listen, if there's more development, if there's more people interested in building tools, B2B tools for golf courses, ultimately the industry really gets better. You have much better tech than if only two or three people were building it. So yeah, so I'm glad to hear you're coming to the summit and look forward to seeing you there. If there was one thing that you wish people knew about EasyT that maybe they don't know, what is it? Because I kind of feel like part of this podcast has turned into like, let's just help tell the story of EasyT. What do you want people to know?
Yeah, so I think the most important thing is my vision for EZT. So EZT Golf, my vision for the company is to be the easiest golf course software company to work with, the easiest experience the golf course has ever had with software. And there's kind of three areas where I focus on to deliver that. One is ease of getting started. And so everybody who signs up with EZT gets a 30-day free trial. You can sign up for EZT on your own and literally takes about 10 minutes to sign up. You go on the website, you click the get started button, and in 10 minutes, you can have a tee sheet live. And so easy to get started, easy to use. So every page, every workflow, everything in EZT has been designed to be easy, to be intuitive, to reduce the cognitive load on the user, to make it so that you're not having to think about things, that you're able to do things at a glance, you're able to do things automatically, both as a golf course employee working with the tee sheet, but also as a golfer making a booking at a golf course. And the third one is be an easy company to work with. And so I do that through, policies. EZT, we don't require any kind of contracts, any kind of minimum time with the company. When you sign up, you have 30 days to try it out. I don't even ask for a credit card during the trial. But if you want to cancel, you can cancel anytime. I think I should have to earn the business of the golf course every single day. And so I don't require them to sign any contract. Every customer has a direct line to me. They can send me an email anytime with feedback, questions, comments, feature requests, and I respond to every email. My goal is to respond to every single customer email in under an hour. And I do that. And that's really kind of my vision and my goal for EZT is to be the easiest software company to work with in the golf industry.
Well, that's great. I mean, then you definitely gave it a great name. The
Yeah,
name aligns with the mission, so that's good.
that's right. And that was a coincidence. Like I said, I didn't. EZT was kind of the domain that I found was available that I was happy with, and that vision has kind of been formed over the years, but it aligns with it very well.
Well, good, good. Okay. Well, that's David Clark from EZT Golf, founder, CEO, customer support, the whole thing, a coder too. And David, that is so valuable when the person that talks to the customers really knows the tech inside and out. It's so incredibly valuable for the user. So congrats to you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah. All right. Have a great day. That's Tech Caddy Podcast. We'll see people down in Texas soon. Probably have one or two more episodes before that. So thanks for tuning in. And David, best of luck to you.